Hey guys, so today we're checking out the Body Armor 4x4 Pro Series rear bumper fitting all 2016 and newer Toyota Tacomas. So if you're in search of some extra protection, utility, and some off-road styling for the rear end of your truck, this option by Body Armor 4x4 is going to be a great choice to take a look into. Now this will be great for the truck owner who's looking for, like I said, that extra protection on the back end. This is made of a heavy-duty steel construction, so if you are taking your truck off-road, you're taking your truck on the work site, or even just want some extra protection on the street, this is definitely going to be able to hold up to that. This will also have utility features including 2 recovery mounts or D-ring mounts on the back. So again, if you are taking your truck off-road and you're looking for a bumper that's going to provide a solid recovery point, if you ever get into a sticky situation, this will accommodate for that. Now this will also have cutouts on either side if you're looking to mount up auxiliary lighting on the back end of your truck, whether that's for a work light, whether you are looking to tie it into your reverse lights, or just overall some extra visibility. This will allow for 2 3-inch cube lights to be mounted in. There are going to be welded mounts on the bumper, so you don't have to worry about that at all. Now this will also accommodate mostly all of the factory features. This will have a cutout for the hitch plug, the license plate lights, and this will even come with cutouts for the factory backup sensors if your Tacoma is equipped. Now what I really like about that is the fact that this is going to have those cutouts for the license plate lights, so you can reuse your factory ones with the factory housing, and you can also reuse the factory wiring harness. Now some other choices available on the page will usually come with an additional light, and they won't be able to accommodate for the factory ones. So I personally think that that is a big step up, considering that you don't have to do any additional wiring or any additional install when it comes to staying legal on the street. Now overall, this is really just going to add a more utilitarian and off-road look to the back end of the truck, of course with all of those benefits. Now with all of that being said, this is going to come in at roughly $650. Now in my personal opinion, I think with everything that's included in the bumper, that is definitely a great price point. Now like I said, some other options will not include all of the features that you see here, especially accommodating for the factory features. Some won't have cutouts for those factory backup sensors. Some will come with an additional light instead of accommodating for the factory lights, and so on. And then there are some other options that will have basically all of the bells and whistles and come with a couple more features. They may even come with lights already inside the bumper in comparison to this, where you would have to purchase additional lights. I personally think when it comes to the lights, you getting your own choice on what you want to do with that is definitely a hand up on you customizing your truck. So kind of comes down to personal preference. However, again, if you're looking for a lot of utility, protection, and style for the back end of your Tacoma, then this is a great choice. When it comes to install, I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. This will require an extra hand to get it mounted up, but it's nothing you can't do in your driveway with some pretty basic hand tools and about 2 hours worth of your time. So speaking of that install, let's jump into that now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, a pair of needle nose pliers, a soft pry tool, flathead screwdriver, a pick, a 3/8" drive and 1/4" drive ratchet, the provided Allen keys, an 18, 12, and 10mm socket, a 5mm Allen socket, a Phillips head socket, and an electric ratchet. So the first step of our install is to take off our license plate. Now for this, I'm going to use a Phillips head socket. However, this is going to depend on what hardware that you have holding on your license plate. You may need a 10mm socket. Now that our license plate is removed, that's going to expose one of the clips that we'll have to remove in order to remove our bumper here. Next, we can head underneath and disconnect the wiring harness for our hitch plug as well as our license plate lights. So our next step is to disconnect our hitch plug. This is just going to have a tab up on top. We're just going to press down on that tab and pull back. That's going to release our wiring harness. And then what we can do is just pop that out completely, because we're going to have to swap that over. So I usually take a flathead screwdriver and just depress these clips that are just holding it onto the bumper here. So once both of those clips are through, we'll be able to wiggle this out and forward. So after we've removed our hitch plug here, there's a wiring harness right next to it up at the top that's connected to the body and that's also connected to the bumper. What I'm gonna do is disconnect this and then we can move on to our license plate lights. Just have to depress that tab and pull back. So our next step is to remove our license plate lights and disconnect the wiring harness for this. Now what I like to do is just pop it through the bumper. That makes it a little bit easier because this is kind of a tight space to work with, especially to unplug a wiring harness. Now what I'm gonna do is take a flathead screwdriver and just depress the clips on either side of the light. That's really what's holding it into the back bumper, and we're gonna have to swap these over in just a second to our new bumper anyway. So if you just push forward and depress those clips, just like we did with the hitch plug, we'll be able to remove this light. What we can do next is remove the couple of clips that are holding on this trim piece. Now I already kind of pried up on this trim piece here, so it is going to be pretty easy to remove. Now if this is the first time that you're removing this trim piece, it is going to be pretty difficult to remove, but it's only held in by a couple of clips on the bottom and then a couple of clips on the front behind the license plate and 2 on either side down at the corner of the trim piece. So I'm gonna take a soft pry tool and remove this clip up top, and then we can head down to the corner. I'm gonna use that same soft pry tool, take out this clip, we can remove the one on the other corner, and then we can pull up our trim piece. So like I said, I already pulled up on this and removed most of these clips. Now this trim piece is going to be a little bit difficult at first to take off just because of the multiple clips, but this is going to expose most of the bolts that we need to remove in order to remove our bumper as a whole. So we can put this to the side and grab our tools for our next step. Next, we can remove the 2 bolts underneath that are holding on the bottom portion of our bumper. I'm going to use a 12mm socket and my electric ratchet to remove those. Then we can do the same thing on the other side. Now directly above the frame rail from the ones that we just removed, there's gonna be 2 more 12mm bolts. I'm gonna use the same 12mm socket to remove them. Then we can repeat that for the other side. Last but not least, we can remove the 2 bolts that are in the middle, holding our bumper onto the hitch assembly here. I'm using that same 12mm socket. At this point, what we can do is just remove our rear bumper by pulling back. Now before we install our new rear bumper, I did want to stop down and tell you guys a little bit more about it, especially in comparison to our factory rear bumper, show you some of the similarities and differences between the two, and what benefits you're going to get out of this new rear bumper setup. Now overall, this is going to be a big step up in protection, in looks, and overall utility. Now starting off with protection, in comparison to our factory rear bumper, this is going to be made of a 3/16 inch steel plate material that is going to hold up for the long run. It's going to hold up to any abuse while you are out on the trail or take a hit while you're out on the street, a lot better than the factory plastics. The factory rear bumper is just going to be made out of a plastic material, so if you do take a hit to that, it's not going to do the best job at protecting the rear end of your truck, and it is going to crack and break, as to where this one, it's not going to do any of that. Now this is also going to have a nice textured black powder coat finish on top, which is going to do a really good job at protecting the steel underneath from any rusting, but what it's also going to do is just create a more aggressive and off-road look to to the back end of your Tacoma. Now what I really like about this is the fact that this is going to give you full wraparound protection just like the factory rear bumper would, so it will have an OEM style fit, but it's also going to come with a couple other benefits that the factory rear bumper is unable to give you. On either side of this bumper, we're going to have two welded D-ring mounts. That's going to be great if you ever get into a sticky situation, whether you are on the street or on the trail and need a recovery point. This is going to be a solid recovery point in the back, especially because the rear bumper is mounted up to our frame here. Now, this will also have two cutouts on either side for accessory lighting. You will be able to mount up cube lights in this rear bumper, whether you're looking for additional lighting in the back for reverse lights, you're looking for work lights, or really just some extra visibility out of the back end of your truck. Now this is also going to come with a couple of factory features. This will accommodate the factory backup sensors if your truck is equipped. We will be able to swap over our hitch or our hitch plug, and this will also have two cutouts on either side for the license plate lights, which is very beneficial because we'll be able to swap over the factory ones. We don't have to do any additional wiring. I do really like that out of this rear bumper. I think that that gives it a one-up on some of the other choices available. So overall, this is going to provide a lot of style, protection, and utility out of the back end of the Tacoma. So what do you say we go ahead and mount it up? So now with the help of a friend, we can mount up our bumper. I'd recommend to have your hardware in hand. We are going to be using the carriage bolt and the carriage bolt plate for this. If you have a hitch receiver, it will be a little bit different if you are working without a factory hitch receiver. So now that the bumper is resting on our hitch receiver assembly, what we can do is take that carriage bolt in the plate. We can put that through the bumper bracket that's welded. It's going to rest on the inside of our hitch receiver bracket. It's going to go through our bumper bracket, through the hitch receiver bracket, and then we can secure it on the other side. Now we're not going to tighten it down just yet. We're just going to make sure that it's secure, and now we can secure it down the rest of our bumper. So what we can do at this point is mount up our spacers. We're going to have a thick and thin spacer. We're going to have two mounting locations on the top of our frame on either side, and we're going to have two mounting locations in the middle, just like our factory rear bumper. So we're going to take these, we're going to lift up on the rear bumper here, and we're going to slide these in between. And line those up with the mounting location. Then we can do the same thing on the other side. Before we attach our spacers in the middle, what I want to do is loosely install our bolts for the top mounting locations on our frame. So this is going to be the Allen head bolt, lock washer, and flat washer. We're going to thread these into the factory mounting location. And just a couple threads in, we just want to make sure that the bumper is not moving around a lot, but we still need to make sure that it will move vertically. Now, depending on how many spacers you need, this is going to depend on your setup, but we're going to take the smaller square spacers and wedge them in between the frame and our bumper. And we can line those up in just a second, but we're going to do that on either side for each mounting location. So it might be helpful to use a pick just to line up the holes in the bumper and the holes in the frame. We can take that same style hardware and just thread that in. And again, we just want a couple threads on either side, make sure everything's lining up correctly. Now with a 5mm Allen socket and Allen key, what I'm going to do is tighten down all of the top bolts, then we can head underneath for the carriage bolts. Now the back one, since there's not a lot of room, you may not be able to get the socket in there if you're using a socket, but I'm using the provided Allen key for this. Now we can tighten down the carriage bolt with an 18mm socket. Once this side is tightened down, we can repeat that process on the other side, and then we can swap over our wiring harness. So because we're swapping over our factory hitch plug and our factory license plate lights, what we need to do is also swap over our factory wiring harness for those two things. So what I'm going to do is take a pair of needle nose pliers. This is just held in by a number of clips that are lining the back of our factory bumper. And I'm just going to squeeze either side of those clips and pull back, and that clip should pop right out. So next we can take our license plate light and we can pop that through our rear bumper. There is a little alignment pin down at the bottom there. That's just gonna fit in just like that. We can do the same thing on the other side. And then same thing goes for our hitch plug. We're just gonna pop that into place, push it in to secure it, and those pins should hold it through the bumper. So after everything's in the bumper, what we can do is plug in our wiring harness for our license plate lights. I'm gonna start with that main wire up at the top. Then we can take the smaller wiring harness and plug that into the back of the license plate light. So this is gonna be very difficult to see, but these are just gonna plug into the back of that light, just like they did on our factory bumper. They're gonna be in roughly the same location. Once you hear a click on one side, do the same thing for the other. So once that's plugged in, just make sure that you tuck your wiring. You could even zip tie this to the hitch receiver just to kind of clean it up, keep it in place. Then we can take our hitch plug wiring harness and plug this into place. So after everything's plugged in, if you did not swap over your factory backup sensors, we do not have them, so we didn't swap them over. You would take these rubber plugs and we're just going to put them in the same location that the backup sensors would be in. And you are provided with hardware in order to mount those up, but these are just gonna fit right in place and fill that hole there. Now we're gonna have 3 other ones, 2 others in the middle and 1 on the other side, so we can just repeat that process. So last but not least, once the bumper is mounted, everything's in the bumper and plugged in, we can install our license plate. We're gonna install it with the provided bolts and tighten it down with the provided Allen key. Might need to go underneath the bumper in order to access the nut on the other side. Now with the provided Allen key and a 10mm socket, we can go ahead and tighten that up. So that's gonna wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe for more videos and products just like this, and always keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.